Good evening. My name is Debbie Jo Felix, and I will be reading several parts during this reading of Mr. Icky by F. Scott Fitzgerald, presented by No Strings Theater Company. The other actors in this reading are Joshua Talby as the narrator, Scott Bricotto as Mr. Icky, Luz Resendez as Rodney Devine, and Charles Icky, and Rachel Thomas Chappell as Elsa Icky, and other Icky children. The 1920s, better known as the Roaring Twenties, was marked by jazz, dramatic social change such as prohibition, and radical political movements. Americans were ready to leave farm life behind and occupy the big cities. The invention of radios and the popularity of the movie theater exposed Americans to artistic and cultural dynamics like never before, inspiring new generations to seek independence from family tradition and work. F. Scott Fitzgerald is well known for his most loved novels that represent the colorful flamboyance that is known as the Jazz Age, a term he is credited for. He visited Europe often, where he was inspired by the modernist writers, artists, and freethinkers. Fitzgerald was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, but spent most of his life in New York. He attended Princeton, but dropped out in 1917 to join the Army. During this time, he met the love of his life, Zelda Sayer, and shortly after, he had his first commercially successful published novel, This Side of Paradise. The couple wed. The Great Gatsby, his most notable novel, was inspired by his rise to fame and his relationship to Zelda. His private life with his wife, in both America and France, became almost as celebrated as his novels. Considerably less well-known are the one-act plays he wrote. The St. Paul plays, written between 1911 and 1914, were written while Fitzgerald was a teenager. These were produced by a local theater group and were romantic adventures. The names of the plays are The Girl from Lazy J, The Captured Shadow, Coward, and Assorted Spirits. Mr. Icky, which will be performed tonight, was written in 1922, as well as The Vegetable, which was supposed to open on Broadway. But unfortunately, the tryout in Atlantic City was a dismal failure, so it never premiered in New York City. This absurd play is about a postman who, by some strange twist of fate, ends up in the White House. After the financial failure of his novel, Tender is the Night, and once the publication of his short stories in the Saturday Evening Post no longer provided a steady source of income, Fitzgerald moved to Los Angeles to work as a scriptwriter at MGM. In 1937, he adapted Three Comrades, about three friends in post-war Germany, for the big screen. It was his only screen credit the 4 years at Hollywood. Achieving limited success in his living years, he descended into drinking, and after a long struggle with alcoholism, he died on December 21st, 1940, at the age of 44, never realizing the legacy he would leave behind for many more free-thinking generations to come. He is quoted as saying, "Never confuse a single defeat with a final defeat." And now, without further ado, Mr. Icky.
The scene is the exterior of a cottage in West Isaacshire on a desperately Arcadian afternoon in August. Mr. Icky, quaintly dressed in the costume of an Elizabethan peasant, is pottering and doddering among the pots and dogs. He is an old man, well past the prime of life, no longer young. From the fact that there is a burr in his speech and that he has absent-mindedly put on his coat wrong side out, we surmise that he is either above or below the ordinary superficialities of life. Near him on the grass lies Peter, a little boy. Peter, of course, has his chin on his palm like the pictures of the young Sir Walter Raleigh. He has a complete set of features, including serious, somber, even funeral gray eyes, and radiates that alluring air of never having eaten food. This air can best be radiated during the afterglow of a beef dinner. He is looking at Mr. Icky, fascinated. Silence. The song of birds.
Often? Well, at night, I sit at my window and regard the stars. Sometimes I think they're my stars. I think I shall be a star someday.
Yes, yes.
I know them all. Venus, Mars, Neptune, Gloria Swanson.
I don't take no stock in astronomy. I've been thinking of London, laddie, and calling to mind my daughter, who has gone for to be a typewriter.
Oh, I liked also Mr. Icky. She was so plump, so round, so buxom.
Not worth the paper she was padded with, laddie.
He stumbles over a pile of pots and bottles.
Well, how is your asthma, Mr. Icky?
Worse, thank God. I'm 100 years old. I'm getting brittle.
I suppose life has been pretty tame since you gave up petty arson.
Oh, yes. You see, Peter, laddie, when I was 50, I was reformed once in prison.
You went wrong again?
Worse than that. The week before my term expired, they insisted on transferring to me the glands of a healthy young prisoner they were executing.
And it renovated you.
Oh, renovated me? It put the old Nick back in me. This young criminal was evidently a suburban burglar and a kleptomaniac. What was a little playful arson by comparison?
Oh, how ghastly. Science is the bunk.
I got him pretty well subdued now. 'Tisn't everyone who has to tire out 2 sets of glands in one's lifetime. I wouldn't take another set for all the animal spirits in an orphan asylum.
Well, I shouldn't think you'd object to a nice, quiet, old clergyman set.
Clergymen haven't got glands. They have souls.
There is a low, sonorous honking off stage to indicate that a large motor car has stopped in the immediate vicinity. Then a young man, handsomely attired in a dress suit and a patent leather silk hat, comes onto the stage. He is very mundane. His contrast to the spirituality of the other two is observable as far back as the first row of the balcony. This is Rodney Devine.
Looking for Osa Icky.
Mr. Icky rises and stands tremulously between 2 Todds.
My daughter is in London.
She has left London. She is coming here. I have followed her.
He reaches into the little mother-of-pearl satchel that hangs at his side for cigarettes. He selects one, and scratching a match, touches it to the cigarette. The cigarette instantly lights.
I shall wait here.
He waits. Several hours pass. There is no sound except an occasional cackle or hiss from the Dodds as they quarrel among themselves. Several songs can be introduced here, or some card tricks by Devine, or a tumbling act, as desired.
It's quiet here.
Yes, very quiet.
Suddenly, a loudly dressed girl appears. She is very worldly. It is Ulsa Icky. On her is one of those shapeless faces peculiar to early Italian painting.
Father, here I am. Also did what?
Ulsa, little Ulsa.
They embrace each other's torsos.
You've come back to help me with the plowing.
No, Father. Plowing is such a bother. I'd rather not.
Though her accent is broad, the content of her speech is sweet and clean.
See here, Ulsa. Let's come to an understanding.
He advances toward her with the graceful, even stride that made him captain of the striding team at Cambridge.
You still say it would be Jack?
What does she mean?
My dear, of course it would be Jack. It couldn't be Frank.
Frank who?
It would be Frank.
Some risque joke can be introduced here.
No good fighting. No good fighting.
Reaching out to stroke her arm with the powerful movement that made him stroke of the crew at Oxford.
You'd better marry me.
Why, they wouldn't let me through the servants' entrance of your house.
They wouldn't. Never fear. You shall come in through the mistress's entrance.
Sir!
I beg your pardon? You know what I mean?
You want to marry my little Elsa?
I do.
Your record is clean.
Excellent. I have the best constitution in the world.
And the worst bylaws.
At Eton, I was a member at Pop. At Rugby, I belonged to Near Beer. As a younger son, I was destined for the police force.
Skip that. Have you money?
Wads of it. I should expect Ulsa to go down to town in sections every morning, in 2 Rolls Royces. I also have a kiddie car and a converted tank. I have seats at the opera, so that's...
I can't sleep except in a box. And I've heard that you were cashiered from your club.
A cashier?
I was cashiered.
What for?
I hid the polo balls one day for a joke.
Is your mind in good shape?
Fair. After all, what is brilliance? Merely the tact to sow when no one is looking and reap when everyone is.
Be careful. I will not marry my daughter to an epigram.
I assure you I'm a mere platitude. I often descend to the level of an innate idea.
None of what you're saying matters. I can't marry a man who thinks it would be Jack. What, Frank?
Nonsense!
You're a fool.
Tut. One should not judge. Charity, my girl. What was it Nero said? With malice toward none, with charity toward all.
The Nero? That was John Drinkwater.
Come, who is this Frank? Who is this Jack?
Gosh.
Dempsey.
We were arguing that if they were deadly enemies and locked in a room together, which one would come out alive? Now, I claim that Jack Dempsey would take one look at Frank and...
No, he wouldn't have a badger's chance.
You win. You win.
Then I love you again.
So, I'm going to lose my little daughter.
You've still got a house full of children.
Charles, Ulsa's brother, comes out of the cottage. He is dressed as if to go to sea. A coil of rope is slung about his shoulder, and an anchor is hanging from his neck.
I'm going to sea. I'm going to sea.
You went to sea a long time ago.
I've been reading Conrad.
Conrad. 2 years Before the Mast by Henry James.
What?
Walter Pater's version of Robinson Crusoe.
I can't stay here and rot with you. I want to live my life. I want to hunt eels.
I will be here when you get back.
Why? The worms are licking their chops already when they hear your name.
It will be noticed that some of the characters have not spoken for some time. It will improve the technique if they can be rendering a spirited saxophone number.
Oh, these vales, these hills, these McCormick harvesters, they mean nothing to my children. I understand.
You'll think kindly of me, Father. To understand is to forgive.
No, no, we never forgive those we can understand. We can only forgive those who wound us for no reason at all.
Like, I'm so beastly sick of your human nature line. And anyway, I hate the hours around here.
Several dozen more of Mr. Icky's children trip out of the house, trip over the grass, and trip over the pots and dods. They are muttering,
We are going away.
And we are leaving you.
Oh, they're all deserting me. I've been too kind. Spare the rod and spoil the fun. Oh, for the glance of a Bismarck.
There is a honking outside, probably divine chauffeur growing impatient for his master.
They do not love the soil. They have been faithless to the great potato tradition.
He picks up a handful of soil passionately and rubs it on his bald head. Hair sprouts.
Oh, Wordsworth, Wordsworth, how true you spoke. No motion has she now, no force. She does not hear or feel, rolled round on the earth's diurnal course in someone's Oldsmobile.
They all groan and shouting,
Life.
Yes!
move slowly towards the wings.
Back to the soil, yes! I've been trying to turn my back on the soil for 10 years.
Farmers may be the backbone of the country, but who wants to be a backbone?
I care not who hoes the lettuce of my country if I can eat the salad.
Oh, life.
Psychic research!
Jazz.
I must be quaint. That's all there is. It's not life that counts. It's the quaintness you bring to it.
We're going to slide down the Riviera.
We've got tickets for the Piccadilly Circus.
Oh, life.
Jazz!
Wait! Let me read to you from the Bible. Let me open it at random. One always finds something there that bears on the situation.
He finds a Bible lying in one of the dots, and opening it at random begins to read.
Ahab and Esthermo and Anam, Bosan and Olin and Gilo, 11 cities and their villages, Arab and Ruma and Esau.
I'll buy 10 more rings and try again.
How beautiful art thou, love! How beautiful art thou! Thy eyes are dove's eyes, besides what is hid within. Thy hair is as flocks of goats which come up from Mount Galad. Rather a coarse passage.
His children laugh at him rudely, shouting,
Jazz.
All life is primarily suggestive.
Oh, it won't work today. Maybe it's damp. Yes, it's damp. There was water in the dod. It won't work.
It's damp.
It won't work.
Jazz.
Come, we must catch the 6:30.
any other cue may be inserted here.
Goodbye.
They all go out. Mr. Icky left alone. He sighs and, walking over to the cottage steps, lies down and closes his eyes. Twilight has come down, and the stage is flooded with such light as never was on land or sea. There is no sound except a sheep herder's wife in the distance, playing an aria from Beethoven's 10th Symphony on a mouth organ. The great white and gray moths swoop down and light on the old man till he is completely covered by them, but he does not stir The curtain goes up and down several times to denote the lapse of several minutes. A good comedy effect can be obtained by having Mr. Icky cling to the curtain and go up and down with it. Fireflies or fairies on wires can also be introduced at this point. Then Peter appears, a look of almost imbecile sweetness on his face. In his hand, he clutches something and from time to time glances at it in a transport of ecstasy. After a struggle with himself, he lays it on the old man's body and then quietly withdraws. The moths chatter among themselves and then scurry away in sudden fright. And as night deepens, there still sparkles there, small, white, and round, breathing a subtle perfume to the West Isaacshire breeze. Peter's gift of love, a mothball. The play can end at this point, or can go on indefinitely. Thank you. Good night.